No, no. Wait. Okay, hold on. Okay, Michelle, talk. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you. Let me just turn it up. Okay, so you can only see me right now, but I'm turning. Okay, that's just the power. All right, here's my class.
Hey, class.
Hello.
So
Now, Frederick is probably going to join us too. So, but
awesome.
the fire alarm just went off in his building. So
That's the other editor besides Michelle, besides Dr. Casorla. Frederick and Michelle. Do you want to be called Dr. Casorla or Michelle?
Just call me Michelle. It's fine.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Casella, me too.
All my students always call me Dr. K, so because they could never say my name. Something about the South, they always say Casola.
So Michelle is in Georgia, in Atlanta. You want to say a little bit about where you're at and how this came about before we start talking about things?
Sure. Okay, so Frederick and I were talking because we talk a lot. We started working together at Clark Atlanta University back in, what was that, 2009? Anyway, we were working together at Clark Atlanta University. It was like the job from hell. We had this horrible boss that was like crazy. I mean, she was literally like crazy.
English department? Was it English department?
Yes, of course.
Yes. We know about that.
So yeah, she hated me. I hated her, but I was working with her. So, and Frederick came in after I started working there. So Frederick and I kind of like bonded because like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That was my child. And so after he left, and I was there for a long time after that, just because I like to just be a bane to her anyway. And so after he left, I was still friends with him, and then we started talking, and we would have these like really long discussions. We still do for hours. We talk about theory and politics, all kinds of crazy stuff. So we were talking one night about the idea of a crowdsourced novel, and I've always been interested in generative literature. It was first I did my senior thesis on Alain Robbe-Grillet, who's a French New Wave novelist. And he was kind of what's called the Alupo group in France. And he worked with Bruce Morissetti, who's a theorist who also worked with this group. And they wanted to create a literature that was not plot-based. In fact, Alain Robbe-Grillet wrote a novel called, I'm actually a work of theory called For a New Novel, where he said that novelists were basically sitting on a branch and then sawing themselves off the tree. That there was no future in writing novels, which was crazy. This was 1950, so of course we know there's a future in it, but he was very impatient for the future. And of course he couldn't have perceived where literature would go now with digital literature and e-literature and all that stuff. But he wanted to conceive of new ways. So he said one way that we can create literature is to throw the plot away and to try to come up with different ways. So one of them was to create generatively. So by the time I got to my PhD, I was looking at how ethnic writers, because my PhD is in ethnic American literatures, so African American, Asian American, Indian, and Jewish American. And I started to look at how ethnic writers were using, for example, language as a generative source. For instance, in Toni Morrison's Tar Baby. If you look at the words Tar Baby, nobody likes that novel, so I figured I'd look at it. Toni Morrison, Tar Baby is both a Southern, myth that was in Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby. You guys all know that story?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Tar Baby
no
Brer Rabbit.
They don't know the myth of the Tar Baby.
Yeah.
It comes from children's literature, and it's like sort of a trap thing. You want to tell them?
Yeah, it's Joel Chandler Harris, actually, who's not PC, so that's why most of you don't know the story. But Joel Chandler Harris wrote it up, and it was the story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear who are trying to catch, Brer Bear is trying to catch Brer Rabbit to eat him, Brer Bear and Brer Fox. And they make this baby out of tar, and they put it by the road, and Brer Rabbit comes by, and he says, "How do you do?" And the the tar baby says nothing. So eventually Brer Rabbit gets really upset that tar baby's so rude and starts hitting him. And then, of course, Brer Rabbit is trapped. So that one of the
Duck.
ways to have a tar baby is to trap you. Now, another tar baby that nobody knows about is a tar baby that comes from African mythology, which is a monster that hides in swamps and steals children. So when you open Toni Morrison's work, what you end up seeing is there's two people, two protagonists. One is an African American. He's mostly African, and he's hiding in a swamp watching an African American who's mostly white. She's African American. She's more American than African, and he's watching her in this like southern style house, and she's trying to trap him and he's trying to steal her away. So that's where all of the work comes, all of the stress, the tension for the novel comes from. So it's really coming from language. And then you see all these kind of plays on the word tar, which also will mean sailor, a black person, it means daughter of. So all of these things are in play in the novel. So I started to see how generative literature was being used, at least from language, with a lot of ethnic American writers, but they weren't thinking about it as generative literature. They were thinking about it as just coming from the language, which Geneva Smitherman calls nomo. It's the spirit of the word. Okay, so that's where I came from. And so we started talking about the possibilities of crowdsourcing a novel and making something. So then we thought, okay, let's make it a mystery. How are we going to do this? So then we came up with the idea, let's have 10 writing classes, and we're down to 7 because like 3 people dropped out, but but it's okay. But we wanted to start with 10 characters, 10 writing classes, all writing about one of the alumni. It's so hard to say that word.
Alums.
One of the alums, yeah. One of the alums at this prestigious, school. And they would all be, involved in this murder mystery. They would all be suspects. All of them could have committed the murder, So, and then how do we make that generative? Well, we have the students write about characters who knew this character, so that defines who the character is. And then the teacher, the faculty member, writes up the thing that goes into the alumni magazine. So we started to build this kind of modular system. And then we thought, okay, so then what are we going to do with it? So we thought, okay, let's gamify it. Let's make some games with it. Let's play with it. Let's see where it goes and try to have as little. We want to have constraint, creative constraint. So you have the sketches of the alumnus. You have a certain place. You have a certain time. You have a certain victim. All of those things are controlled by us, but the rest of it is all you.
So we have lots of questions about like how to proceed. The class is really underway with some really wonderful sketches.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I've tweeted out a bunch of links just to see what's come up, and some of my students have been really great. And they've already created what would be considered an artifact because they've inhabited the perspective of that character that they've created. And many have blogged about the character, have decided that the character is going to be A, B, and C, yada, yada. So now I think we have like a bunch of questions about how to take this forward. And I should say, and guys, this is kind of something I haven't talked to you about, but I think it's an important thing for us to discuss together, is that we have bigger projects within this class. You already know about them generally, but not specifically. But you have Project 1, Project 2, Final Project. These are the projects that sort of are the pillars of your work in the course. Project 1 was supposed to be, is hypertext. Project 2 is supposed to be multimodal document. And then Project 3 is a synthetic kind of final project. But what I'd like to do is give you the option of inflecting the artifacts through these projects. So you might decide to make a hypertext document that somehow is connected to your minor character and weaves together some of the stuff we've been discussing. You could take all 3 of the projects and make them essentially gen lit projects, or I think I would rather give you options so that you could decide whether your Gen Lit work is part of your projects or just another side thing that you've developed. It's up to you, and either way it works for me. But I think the Gen Lit stuff, the more we generate, the more this thing will become something engaging, you know? So I guess some of the questions we have is, where do the students go after they register? Because they have already known about, their homework for next week is to register their character and to fill out that form. And many of them have either blogged or created an artifact as well already. But what's confusing me, I guess, is just the question of how are these things being curated or cataloged, or who's looking at all of these things, and should we sort of project outward to the Twitterverse every document or artifact, and would you prefer artifacts over blogging about something? Like, would you prefer meta over just descriptive engagement with something? These are things that are unclear, I think, to all of us.
Yeah, they were kind of supposed to be unclear, and the reason why is that we wanted to see what you folks did with things, and we wanted you to have as much freedom as possible, and that freedom can sometimes be stifling. So one of the things that, yeah, one of the things that we were thinking, we talked about in the discussion today, I don't know if I didn't see students participating, which I was sad about this afternoon at 3 o'clock, but we had a Twitter discussion, and so a lot of things were discussed. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that not only is this a mystery, not only are we creating a mystery on this narrative level, but we're also creating a mystery as form, and we're creating so people are going to have to dig for information. In other words, we don't want to make it so easy for them to get everything. So one of the things that we haven't done is we haven't really talked about how we would, we're going to collect the artifacts and put them, we'll probably have you like just submit them, through the Google, or if they're not submittable through Google, we could probably, you could submit a URL for where they might be housed.
So that's like a first stop then in terms of questions. Every time my students create like a blog post or an artifact where they're inhabiting the voice,
Mm-hmm.
or an artifact as in a trace of an interaction with Rachel and their character, where should we send it?
Okay, well, what I would suggest is probably that they just make a Google Doc that either has, maybe a file even, where that they can share with you and or the project, or a list of URLs where they are if it can't be submitted directly through Google. And I think that those are also possible. Another thing is that they're just that they're discoverable. So in other words, that Google has some way to find them, like it's not hidden from the search engine, because you could create some things that you don't necessarily want to straight out share. And you can play a little bit of your own game with that. Sometimes, one of the things with a lot of people have questions about the target phrase, for example. The target phrase started to come about because we were talking about Trifles by Susan Glaspell, and how the women came into the house and they could tell who had committed the murder by small things that other people didn't pay attention to. And we said, what if the key to this murder lies with some student's narrative? And what if the little clue is it's just placed in there, and nobody really noticed it, and maybe the character is not all that exciting, maybe it's a janitor or something, or maybe the student wrote it in a way that, like it was not easy to read, but this important clue is in there. So when people start playing their game, they're going to be digging, they're going to be trying to find this stuff. And we wanted to create a lot of stuff for them to find so that they can try to push their way through it. And of course, also, in addition to all that, we're going to have people crowdsourcing. So we're going to be doing some crowdsourcing. So people are going to actually be creating their own artifacts when goes live. So you're creating the basic stuff that this all starts kind of priming the pump.
So when does it go live? If that's, I'm sort of confused about all this.
Yeah, so this whole thing is going to go live, we're anticipating fall 2015. And this is when we're going to open the project to everyone to play the game and to try to figure out the mystery. And at that time, we also might be inviting people in, for example, law classes to take up the prosecution or defense of your alumnus, using a lot of the evidence that your students have created. So a lot of these things are going to be, they're going to be there, and they're going to be used in a whole bunch of different ways. So it's a very exciting project for that. It's very open and it's very unwieldy. And one of the things about it is we want it to be unwieldy, because we want to really question the idea of the novel as something that is in one place. And we want it to be a little bit dispersive.
So would, just as a kind of both pedagogic and also organizational approach, would you suggest that when students create their artifacts, that we keep them in one class? I mean, you said a Google Doc, so should we sort of curate all this? Or would you rather that it be something that, as you're saying, is sort of dispersed in blogs and in the Twitter sphere? And, this is part of what I'm just still not quite, I don't have a grip on it.
Yeah, we don't have a grip on it either, and that's one of the things that because we wanted to make it something that was, that you had more control over than we did. And it was kind of planned craziness.
So maybe what we can do is, I'm thinking...
So one of the things you could do, for example, is if you're going to make a blog, you could have, that blog could have both meta stuff and it could have some of the narrative stuff in it, and you could have them on different pages, or they could be mixed in. Maybe then we have the blog as the artifact, and then people can go through that blog and try to figure out, how does this person relate to Rachel, and what exactly, how are we going to learn more about this person? So I'm
thinking out loud right now, but what I am thinking is that because I have 22 students and they have all they haven't all, but many have identified very interesting and disparate characters. Perhaps what I might do is create subgroups of smaller groups of students that work together and sort of collaborate on platforms for taking some of this out. Like maybe one group wants to do a social media engagement with certain artifacts, while another group is blogging and presenting in a certain, I don't know, it's just seems to me a way to, to get stuff out in a more organized way, because as a professor I also have to sort of know where everything, know when someone did something, and that's something I'm concerned about as I'm sort of thinking about moving forward. So
one of the things that I could suggest is that, for example, everyone could have a file, and you could use the Google files to keep track of all that information. Then they could be curating their own stuff and keeping it in a file so that you can give them credit for it. That's a really good way to organize it. Another way is for example, everyone to use for a certain platform, use a WordPress, or there's a really, I love it, it's a one-page website that you can just put a whole bunch of stuff on. It's called Popular, Populr, and it's free. Another thing you could do is to use Wiki, Wiki Spaces. And Wiki Spaces is a great place to put a whole bunch of curated stuff, and if it doesn't quite fit into the Wiki Spaces, almost everything fits into Wiki, but if something doesn't fit into the Wiki Spaces, you can stick the URL in there. If you do a class wiki with different pages for each character, then you'll have it all organized for yourself, and also for the project. And then we can control, you can also control what part of the project goes out and which part of the project stays quiet. So these are all possibilities for organizing it. Wikis are probably the easiest thing because everyone can be part of the wiki. And I don't know if you guys all know about, you guys worked with wikis before?
No.
Mostly knows. I have, so I could guide us.
Yeah, because wikis, what they do, it appears to be in my house. Hold on, there's craziness happening. Just 1 second, sorry.
No trouble. So, guys, what I think I'll do next when she comes back is ask you guys any questions you might have. So if there's anything that's like confusing you, let's I'll turn the thing and have you guys ask your question.
I'm back.
Bye.
Sorry, it was the neighbor returning my kid's soccer ball.
That's good.
We have 8 children. We have 8 boys. So.
So you are Superwoman. So I thought, because we have to go soon because I have 2 class presentations that are going to happen, I figured we'd ask a few questions. My students will ask questions. So does anyone want to ask something specific? It can be the most simple question, anything. Yeah, Lewis, here.
Well, my question is, I really see it on 2 levels. One is a narrative, which is sort of an explanatory backstory, and then the artifact itself, like, for example, set up an email account or a Twitter account for my character and have him tweet or send emails, but at the same time creating some sort of a commentary explaining what's going on and why he's doing it. Now maybe I should just leave but I don't want to. I can't just leave the artifacts because no one will understand. So what do you think?
One thing you might want to do also is you might want to use a tool like Storify. If you use Storify, yeah, you can grab tweets and Facebook posts that are public and put them into a Storify and then put narrative between them. It's a really handy way to handle that.
Between the tweets
Okay.
to thread what you want.
Yeah, okay, that's a great idea, and I'm a Storify expert, so I will share with Lewis that one. How about anybody else? But actually, I just want to clarify what Lewis is saying. So there's the artifacts, and then there's the descriptive, which I guess I was trying to say before as well. And basically, we'll be generating both, is I think what's going to be happening. And I guess if we can house it in files, individual files, and it can be sort of like an end-of-class portfolio, that might be the best way to handle this. So I'll think about it further. I just want to, since there was a sort of structure to the kinds of things the students were doing in this class to begin with besides GenLit, I don't want to overwhelm them, and so I need to know how to simplify things and blend things together, which is totally possible, and I think it's more fun if we can double dip, so to speak. So
yeah, I think you can definitely double dip, and also I want to let the students know that after your class is over, if you want to keep going with the character, we really would love it. We would love if you would want to add extra stuff or even pick up another character later. Another thing that we wanted to let your students know as well as you is this is not only something that you can do for creative writing, but we'd also love to have some of that scholarly understanding of the project, that theoretical understanding of the project. And Hybrid Ped has said that they would love to have some students writing stuff, and they want to put it in their publication. So if any of your graduate students or undergrads who are looking towards, building your graduate portfolio, you might want to think also about writing some scholarly theoretical stuff about being part of the project. So that we can publish that.
I definitely have an intention of doing that myself, and I would love to do a kind of collaborative writing project with my students. So we'll sort of have that as a backdrop too, and people can partake in that. And again, the job that I have to do is to figure out how to like make all of this condensed in a way that so students aren't like, I have a million things to do for this class. I want it to all be like kind of in a flow. So, you know, I'll continue to work on that. But I think, any other like specific questions, technical questions? Let me just scan the room a little bit.
Wake up!
I don't know. Can you see them, Michelle? There they are, sort of.
I kind of was following in on your e-lit class discussion the other day. I hope it wasn't too pushy, but it was.
No, it's awesome. I'm so glad. You know, I'm part of this whole connected courses thing, and I'm trying to model what it means to learn and to teach in a 21st century context, in a networked context. So I love when we dip in and out of our communities and share things, and I was just so happy to see. So I told my students here that we're going to use both hashtags from here on in. The eLit class, which is our established class hashtag, but then the GenLit hashtag as well as but I guess a simple question that I have is it then appropriate what I started with, in the sense that my students did some work and I thought it was great, and so I tweeted links to what they're doing. That isn't going to ruin it, right? I mean, it's not going to like...
No, because people are going to have to look for those students, and they're going to have to look for who were the faculty. They're going to have to look for where they might find those hashtags. And those things are all part of the sleuthing.
Okay.
So, because we don't want it to necessarily be as easy as possible for them to find this kind of stuff, and we want them to have kind of an inside-outside look at it. Also, you know, your students are welcome to open Google accounts in their character's name, open Twitter accounts in their character's name, if they would like to keep themselves behind the scenes, you know, and they don't want anyone to know it was them or whatever. If they want a certain level of anonymity, we're happy to have them just participate with the project from the Google identity of whatever character they have, or whatever Twitter they have for that character, and that will ensure your anonymity later. So I don't want anyone to feel like you have to give up your anonymity. So
that's a very important point, and I really appreciate that you brought that out, because I think, you know, I'm all about the open web and sort of productive uses of it, but at the same time, some people feel strongly still about, you know, identity issues, and so I think that it's very important that you brought that up, that they can sort of create a pseudonym or something like this to do the work that they want to do, or just do that work through the character and put that public rather than anything having to do with themselves.
Right. You can put your character out there, and you can actually inhabit that character fully and do everything from the character's perspective. You know, like, let's say they're somebody in they're Rachel Behar's lab partner or something. They could bitch on Twitter about how she's such a pig in the lab or whatever. You know, I mean, you know.
But that's bad digital That's like bad digital habits.
Yeah, but they could inhabit.
But we could take an alternative kind of fun. Alter ego.
Yeah, it's sort of like I was telling Frederick, it feels a little bit like digital Barbie. So, you know, I get to dress up my character and put it wherever I want to in a like house, and I get to yeah. So the character and having it's a lot of fun. Like the other day when everybody was all upset about the University of Florida president, remember all the tweets that were going out about that?
I missed it. I'm clueless.
Yeah, the Florida State University president was named, and it's a conservative Republican that a lot of people didn't like. And so there were all these really incredibly passionate tweets going out about this choice and how people were upset with it. And what I did is I took Cadence McCarthy's character, and I said, congratulations to this person for getting chosen president. You'll do a great job. I'm so excited to see you. And
That's good stuff. So you're creating alignments and reasons why people will hate her.
Exactly. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to make her, you know, like not. She's not a very nice person. She's really clawed her way to where she is. So, yeah, and she's really pushed a lot of people to donate a lot of money that maybe didn't want to. And she's really done a lot of stuff that, you know, she's always looking good. She's like, we used to raise chinchillas when I was a kid, and my sisters, when we get together, will say that a woman who is very well put together but is really nasty, we'll call her a chinchilla because, well, they look beautiful, but they smell bad and they eat their children.
Got it. That's an image to like sign off on. We have to go, but I really appreciate your time, and I think we feel a little bit more sort of in this now, and we will, I think there's going to be a lot of negotiations in this class as to what role this project plays in the work that we move forward, but I know that there'll be some there's already interesting stuff that have emerged, you know, from them and from us as a group. So
and if any of your students have any questions also for us, they can tweet those questions, they can send us a note on the Theopolis G+, they can email at us at Theopolis, it's theopoliscollege@gmail.com. We're Theopolis College, but with no E at the end. For some reason, Twitter wouldn't let us have that many letters. So we're at Theopolis College, you know.
College.
Yeah, so you can tweet those, and those go directly to
College.
So we're happy to answer any kind of questions. And seriously, right now, you know, anything that I really have a lot of time to do this, and I'm so excited to hear from the students. So please take this as an open invitation. Ask me any questions you want, and please just let me know, you know, how I can support what you're doing. I just got an email from Leonardo Flores at University of Puerto Rico.
I love Leo.
Yeah. He's wonderful. His students are setting up a wedding for Senator
McIntosh.
For McIntosh, yeah. They're setting up a wedding at Theopolis College for his daughter. And there's a whole bunch of drama around it, but I'm going to put it on the calendar, you know, on the president's calendar, because I assume she's invited. And
that's an idea, an event.
Yeah, so there's events. I can add events to the calendar. I can add them to the president's calendar, to Theopolis College's calendar. If you want to have an event that your characters are meeting at, please let me know. I'll just stick it on the calendar. And so there's all these possibilities to develop this and play with these ideas, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, go for it, and have a lot of fun with it. And please ask us any questions you want, or ask us to help you in any way, or to back up your stories with some evidence on the Theopolis College level. So we can do all that stuff. We can put one of your characters in as teaching a class, for example, if you've got a character that's a professor or whatever.
We do. We have that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. We'll see you again for sure.
Bye.
Ciao.
How does she have so much time with 8 kids?
Ciao, Bella.